Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Scarpad's Comic Treks. I'm your host Scarpad, and this is the videos where we look at Star Trek comics throughout the years from the various publishers, and we break them down. We have fun looking at them and talking about them and analyzing them and doing all sorts of things with them. And today we're going to be looking at a comic from IDW Publishing. IDW Publishing got the license for Star Trek comics in 2007, starting off with a 2-volume series of comics based on the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. They moved on to a successful series with John Byrne, where they took the old photo novel approach and they cut and paste old episodes and made them into brand new stories. Those are fantastic. That series lasted around 30 issues. And since then, they've done a lot of different crossovers with properties, some comics, some movies. They did a Green Lantern, Legion of Superheroes crossover. They also did one based on the Transformers that was fun. And they did a fantastic one that was based on the Planet of the Apes series with the Star Trek crew fighting the Planet of the Apes. And we'll probably be going over a lot of those in future episodes of Comic Treks. I think IDW is one of my favorite publishers when it comes to Star Trek comics because they've done such a wide range of comics based on the license, even more so than any of the other publishers. Even though I think DC is my next favorite, IDW gets the prize for most diverse and most entertaining of all the publishers who've tackled the Star Trek license. But today we're going to start things off with probably one of the latest comics, and that's Star Trek Year 5. And Star Trek Year 5 arrives on the heels of Star Trek Year 4 that came out a few years back. And Year 5 is a comic that, like Year 4, tries to fill in the gaps between the end of the original series and the end of the 5-year mission. And with Star Trek Year 5, which is the first issue is written by Jackson Lanzig and Colin Kelly with artist Stephen Thompson and colorist Charlie Kirchhoff. And they do a phenomenal job, as we'll get to in a minute, with the artwork in this book. It's very, very true to not only Star Trek the original series, but where Star Trek was in the year, what would look like in a proposed Year 5. And this book, because Star Trek never got the final 2 years, it fills in that gap. And I believe it's going to be at least a 12-issue miniseries, although I think I've seen recently issue number 13 being pre-sold. So maybe, I know it's been a very popular book, and maybe they're going to even go beyond that. I tell you right now, I would not mind seeing a ongoing Star Trek the original series book, either set in the original series timeline or the movie timelines, because they do a phenomenal job at IDW. So what I'd like to do right now is like to take a look at the book and go through it a little bit. So the issue starts off, and spoilers for anybody that hasn't read this, of course. The issue starts off with the frame of what's going to be the overall arc of this series, where we jump into the story with the Enterprise facing some sort of a calamity on fire, and Captain Kirk with a phaser to his head, or a weapon to his head. And I love here how he starts off with a little soliloquy about, welcome to the voyages of the Starship Enterprise on its 5-year mission, and he's getting prepared to die. And then they jump back to before any of that's happened and the beginning of the end of their 5-year mission. This story will take place really the last mission of the Starship Enterprise. They've already gotten a call from Starfleet to go back to Earth and be prepared to be decommissioned. Now, we've seen the movies cover this in Star Trek 6 on the final voyage. And we've had other comic books from DC try to cover some of this timeline. But I think they do a really, really good job with it on this book. And the character beats in this thing are fantastic. I mean, Scotty, Spock, McCoy, all the main crew are really well done to their TV counterparts. So they start off by preparing to look at a hypernova going, beginning to burn itself out. And they're starting with this mission when they receive a distress call from an unknown source. And Kirk says, well, this is time to abandon our mission here. We're going to go find out the source of that distress call and figure out what's going on with it. And on their way there, I love this little scene they get with McCoy and Kirk going over basically his regrets that the mission's ending and letting McCoy know that he's been notified by Starfleet Command that they want to make him an admiral. And of course, McCoy takes, every opportunity here to, let it into Kirk. You can tell that he doesn't approve that they're going to promote Kirk and move him to a desk. But the way he brings it on to him is he's all happy for him and tried to lay the reverse psychology on him that he should do it and this is the way he's been working at all his life. Of course, Kirk disagrees. But this scene in the issue really, really smacks of the original series and fantastic artwork. Some of the best I've seen on a Star Trek title. And then we get a scene with this is a great scene with Scotty and Spock, where Scotty's computers have been affected by the hypernova, and he's trying to get Spock to send somebody down. He can't get anybody to fix it, and he's running for the turbo lift, and he's out of breath, and he makes the comment that he doesn't know if it's him being out of shape or just these turbo lifts are getting faster, and Spock can't take the opportunity not to give him a little dig, saying that he's about 28 pounds heavier than he was when he started the mission, and that his genetics show a propensity of leaning toward obesity in later life, which is going to be a little dig at what happened to James Doohan in the movies. And I thought that was a great scene for a little chuckle there. So they get the distress call and they leave the hypernova with Kirk's. Kirk is looking for any opportunity at this point to delay them going back to Earth as long as they can. So the Enterprise arrives at the planet and it's discovered that the distress signal came from the Tholians. And when they beam down, all around them are the bodies of Tholians, all been killed. And they reason that it looks like it was, their own kind did it, because it would have to be somebody that had a distinct knowledge of Tholian biology, and not too many people do that because the Tholians are a very inclusive race. So they find, at this point, a Tholian comes out and starts attacking them. And I love the depiction of Atholians here because, in the series, we got the head part during the Tholian web, but we never knew what the rest of the Tholian looked like. And then we did get the rest of the body shown in Star Trek Enterprise that did an episode about the Tholians. And it was roughly looking like a spider with the head part of it made of crystal. So the comic book carries that on, and it's a fantastic illustration of it. And of course, Kirk has to save the day because he sets the disruptor beam to kind of shatter crystal, and then with a little help from Spock, doing a little, unlogical physical punching to the creature is able to shoot a hole right through it and disable it. Well, basically kill it. But of course, he was attacking. And then, of course, after that happens, a ship arrives in orbit that starts threatening the Enterprise. And I love the voiceover here, because the voiceover is from that future Kirk, the one from the beginning of the story that's being threatened with death. And he's looking back and he's saying, it was at this point I made the worst decision of my career. My next steps would cause all the calamity it caused and all the death that it caused on the last mission of the Starship Enterprise. I love that, the foreshadowing. And basically it's discovered that his next step is to save a Tholian child. And that Tholian child, of course, plays a big part into the issues that to come. And that's the end of the story. I think this was a fantastic first issue of the comic book series. Really set the stage for what's to come. The artwork is fantastic. The character beats are exactly like they would be in the show. The pacing is good. You really want to read the next issue of what's coming up after this initial issue. So the writer, Justin Lansing, did a fantastic job on this book. And so far, I think it's up to issue 9, and we'll be looking at the other issues in other episodes of Comic Treks. But definitely a book series. If you haven't given it a look, go down to your local comic shop. I know that I believe it's the first 5 issues of this, 5 or 6 issues are being put out in trade paperback. In fact, I believe it's already out or will be coming out very shortly. So if you didn't get a chance to collect this monthly, then I would hardly recommend picking this up in the trade because it's definitely a story that's worth adding to your Star Trek comic library. All right, well, thank everybody for watching the video today and watching all my videos so far. I'd like you to go ahead and comment and say what you would like to see in future videos, whether you want to see some reviews. I'm going to be doing some news videos coming up. We have some Star Trek comics coming out in the next few months, some new series starting, and I want to go over some of those and talk about the state of Star Trek comics in future videos. So go ahead, like, share this video, and definitely comment on what you would like to see in the comments below. And once again, thank you for your time. This is a new channel, trying to get it off the ground, and I hope you enjoy Star Trek the way I do and looking at some of these comic adventures. So keep reading and, of course, keep trekking.